Hi, I'm Ellen from the Chili Dog. I'm getting ready to cast on another pair of Waffle cookie socks. These socks are worked from the toe up, and the toe shaping is created with Japanese short rows, which means the stitches I cast on won't be at the tip of the toe. Instead, my cast on stitches will be across the bottom of the foot here at the base of the toe. Since I'll be working my cast on stitches first towards the tip of the toe, then over the toe, and then around in the opposite direction up the foot, I need to use some sort of double-sided cast on to begin my knitting. I won't be demonstrating any specific cast on methods today, but I will include links to some tutorial videos in the description below. Instead, let's talk more generally about two varieties of double-sided cast-ons. Those where your stitches are going to be provisionally cast on to a piece of waste yarn, and those where all the stitches are cast directly onto your knitting needles. Let's start with provisional cast-ons. Provisional cast-ons involve a knitting needle and a piece of waste yarn. And in this example, my waste yarn on both of these cast-ons is the blue yarn. One side of the cast-on stitches are held on the needle, and the other side of the cast-on stitches are temporarily held on a piece of waste yarn or a piece of waste yarn that has been crocheted into a simple chain. You can knit across your stitches on the needles for as long as you need to in one direction. So as I'm working these two fabrics, I would knit and my fabric would grow that way. And then at some point when you want to work from the cast on back in the opposite direction, the stitches that are held here on the waste yarn are going to be placed onto a new knitting needle. The waste yarn is removed and you can knit the other way. Since you can knit your cast on stitches first in one direction, then in the other direction, all provisional cast-ons are double-sided. However, not all double-sided cast-ons are provisional. Some double-sided cast-ons are not provisional, meaning there's no waste yarn temporarily holding one side of the stitches. Instead, all of your stitches are directly cast on to two knitting needles. My three favorite methods for doing this are Judy's Magic Cast-On, which is what I've used here, the Turkish Cast-On, and the Figure 8 Cast-On. Again, I'll give some links to those tutorials in the video description. There are a couple of advantages to using one of these methods instead of a provisional method. First, you can knit across half your stitches. So the ones here on my top needle, I'm going to knit across in one direction. And then when I'm ready to work the stitches on the bottom needle in the opposite direction, the stitches are already placed on a knitting needle. I don't have to fuss with trying to lift my waste yarn and get those stitches mounted onto a needle. Everything's ready to go. Second, instead of just knitting in one direction and then the other, these types of double-sided cast-ons can be used to start a project in the round. So you'd cast on and knit across the stitches on the top needle and around the stitches on the bottom needle and keep going around and around. And what happens is you knit a sort of tube with an enclosed end. Often, if you're following a pattern, it will tell you when you should use a double-sided or provisional cast-on. However, here are a few ideas where you can incorporate double-sided cast-ons into your knitting, even if your pattern doesn't specifically instruct you to do so. One place I like to use double-sided cast-ons is when I'm working top-down sweaters in the round. I'll cast on the stitches around the neck using a double-sided cast on. Then I can knit my sweater in one direction, and later when it's time to pick up stitches at the neckline and work the collar, I already have those stitches either on my needles or on a piece of waste yarn, and I'm ready to start knitting. Another place in sweaters that are worked in the round where you can incorporate double-sided cast-ons is here at the underarm, and it's not something we normally think about. But if you use a double-sided cast-on to cast on these few stitches at the underarm, you can knit your sweater in one direction, and then later when it's time to work your sleeves, these underarm stitches are ready to go and you can knit in the opposite direction. Another idea of a place you can use a double-sided cast on is for a scarf or a cowl or an ear warmer where one end is going to be joined to the opposite end. If you use a double-sided cast on, you knit around in one direction, and then you can use those held cast on stitches from the other side to graft or join the two ends, and then the join can be almost invisible. One more idea. Try a double-sided cast on when you're casting on a bag from the bottom up, because you get this nice little tube and the bottom of your bag is already joined and enclosed, and you don't have to go back and join anything later. Of course, you can do a double-sided cast on for socks when you're starting at the tip of the toe and then working up, or like my waffle cookie socks, you can use a double-sided cast on for a toe-up sock that uses short row shaping, and that cast on will be at the bottom of the foot. If you have other suggestions for places double-sided cast-ons can be used, please take a moment and tell us about them in the comments. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about provisional and double-sided cast-ons. If you did, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Until we stitch again, happy knitting!